Thomas Jefferson's dark secret. The historic Monticello property located in Virginia was a Thomas Jefferson's plantation estate that is considered an important part of the U.S. history. Today, this site is considered a national landmark studied by students across the states and worldwide. There was plenty of evidence and documentation regarding the Virginia plantation, but none of it ever mentioned the recently discovered secrets on the property. Thanks to archaeologists and great efforts put into this discovery, we now know more about Jefferson's life, property, and secret children than ever before. This discovery has left historians shocked with the recently revealed truth about President Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was the third president of the United States. His primary home before he moved to the White House in 1801 was the famous Monticello Plantation located in Virginia, more precisely in Charlottesville. The construction of the Monticello estate began 1768, and today this property is considered a national landmark whose Italian name translates into Little Mountain. The Monticello estate has earned such an important place in U.S. history that you can find the picture of the main house engraved on the back of the U.S. nickel. Despite all the available documentation about the property, the Monticello plantation carried a mystery that was discovered only recently. Thomas Jefferson inherited a piece of land in Charlottesville from his father. At the age of 26, he began building the Monticello estate that featured a large plantation stretching across 5,000 acres. At the time, the plantation was mainly used as a site for cultivating tobacco and wheat. However, just like any other plantation in the U.S. back in the day, the president's plantation had ties with one of the darkest aspects of American history, slavery. Though he campaigned against it politically, exploration of Thomas Jefferson's Monticello estate revealed strong ties to slavery. But in 2017, there was another groundbreaking discovery that would shed light on this mystery. The mystery: who is Sally Hemings? Sally Hemings was one of the many slaves who worked on Thomas Jefferson's plantation. Even though this woman was a slave, her life seemed to have intertwined with Jefferson's in a very unusual way. For this reason, historians were interested in the figure known as Sally Hemings for more than a century. There wasn't much evidence that proved Sally Hemings was more than a victim of slavery. However, a discovery that took place almost 200 years after her death has provided new information regarding her life and all the connected events that formed the mystery of the Monticello estate. The life of Hemings. Sally Hemings had a son named Madison, who claimed that his mother was, in fact, the half-sister of then-president's wife, Martha, who is pictured below. Born in 1773, Sally Hemings was the daughter of John Wales, a planter and slave trader, as well as father of Jefferson's wife. Sally's mother was a woman born into slavery, known as Betty Hemings. The law at the time dictated that all children of enslaved mothers automatically became slaves and were obliged to work on plantations after reaching a certain age. While Sally was just an infant, her mother, siblings, and herself were taken to Jefferson's Monticello estate, where they were considered slaves belonging to Martha, who inherited them from her father. The Hemings children. Sally had a total of 6 siblings and she was the youngest one. She was 25 years younger than her half-sister and president's wife Martha Jefferson. The Hemings siblings grew up together at the Monticello plantation, where they were forced to work as slaves and domestic servants. According to the law at the time, children were positioned at the top of the slave hierarchy and they were not required to do any physical work on the plantation. That is why Sally, along with her brothers and sisters, became a domestic servant. Little did she know that years later she would become a matter of national interest. Finding the clues. Sally Hemings wasn't a slave her whole life. She was enslaved from birth until Jefferson's death in 1826, after which she got to live her last 9 years of life freely. Despite all the historical documentation, there weren't many details regarding Sally's time spent as a slave at the Monticello estate. Thanks to archaeological discoveries, several important clues were discovered that allowed us to better understand the life of this not-so-ordinary woman. An enslaved blacksmith named Isaac Granger Jefferson was the only one to write a description of this woman, describing her as mighty near white, very handsome, long straight hair down her back. Other than this written description, there were absolutely no records of paintings of visual proof of appearance of this important woman in the U.S. history. Unfortunately, we don't have any real-life portraits of Sally Hemings, but there are several descriptions, such as the one given by Thomas Jefferson Randolph. Jefferson's grandson. Randolph described Sally as light-colored and decidedly good-looking. According to trusted historians, Sally's duties at the Jeffersons' estate included working as a chambermaid and a seamstress. There was evidence that Jefferson took strictly detailed notes and records about finances and births on the estate, but it seems like he had never written about Sally Hemings. The life of the young Sally Hemings changed during the 2 years she spent in Paris. When she was 14 years old, Sally was assigned to accompany the youngest daughter of Thomas Jefferson, named Mary, to London and later to Paris, as the future president was serving as the U.S. envoy to France at the time. A lot happened in Paris. What happened in Paris had changed Sally's life forever. During this important trip, Thomas Jefferson, who was then a widower, began an intimate relationship with Sally Hemings. While Jefferson was then in his mid-40s, Sally was only 16 years old. As a result of their time spent together in Paris, Sally became pregnant. In 1789, Hemings returned from Europe to the United States. Since then, she gave birth to 6 children who, according to observers at the time, were considered Jefferson's children due to their resemblance. Even though Jefferson and Hemings were obviously involved in an intimate relationship, nothing was written about this affair until about 20 years later. It was in 1802 when the first written proof of the affair surfaced. One of Thomas Jefferson's opponents published a report known as the Jefferson-Hemings controversy. However, Jefferson's family publicly denied all allegations that Thomas Jefferson was the father of Sally's children. Still, Jefferson never listed the name of the father of the Hemings children in his records known as the Farm Book. Out of 6 children she gave birth to, 4 of Sally's children lived to become adults. Jefferson eventually freed them of slavery, which further proved that the rumors of him being their father could be true. Despite this action, Jefferson's family continued to disprove these allegations, and even historians fought against this idea for the next 150 years. However, the latest discoveries changed their view of the situation. The case of paternity of Sally Hemings' children remained long unresolved. However, thanks to important scientific progress and discoveries, scientists were able to prove that Jefferson was indeed the father of the Hemings children. The historic DNA testing that took place in 1998 proved Jefferson was the father of at least one of Sally's children, which led historians to think that he might indeed be the father of all 6 kids. This important genetic test resulted in a match between a descendant of Eston Hemings, Sally's youngest son pictured above, and the Jeffersons' male line. It would take 2 decades after this important genetic testing for archaeologists to reveal more shocking facts about Sally Hemings' life. The Monticello Plantation was supposed to be partially restored in 2017. During this project, archaeologists conducted excavations in the area, which resulted in finding the missing piece of the puzzle called the Monticello Mystery. After years of not knowing the truth, historians have finally found the living quarters of the mysterious Sally Hemings. In attempts to uncover the original layout of the south wing of the Monticello Plantation main house, archaeologists discovered something historic. They found the room hidden for centuries, and it was hidden so well that no one could have guessed where it was. The south pavilion of the Monticello main house was renovated several times, both during Jefferson's lifetime and significantly after it. The property went through several transformation projects in the 20th century when it became a museum. However, the reason no one could find the hidden room of Sally Hemings was because it was located beneath a modern bathroom built over it in 1941. After being built in 1941, the pictured bathroom was renovated again in the 1960s when it was enlarged due to a larger number of visitors at Monticello. However, despite all that construction work and renovation, the hidden room of Sally Hemings remained unnoticed. You will be surprised when you see what made archaeologists dig deeper. After reanalyzing the history of Monticello, historians came across a document written by one of President Jefferson's grandsons. According to this document, Sally's room was indeed located in the south wing of the main house at the Monticello Plantation. Even though experts could not be completely sure whether this information was true, it didn't take them long to realize that there might actually be something hiding beneath that renovated bathroom. Despite their wild imagination, no one could have guessed that they were about to find some stunning historic artifacts. When it was time to begin the search, archaeologists destroyed the modern men's bathroom at Monticello and dug through the dirt until they eventually found the remains of the Sally Hemings 14-foot living space. Surprisingly, the room still contained the original brick flooring from the early 1800s. As they kept digging, archaeologists found even more surprises. They came across the original brick hearth and a fireplace. However, besides what the room was hiding inside, its location brought some mystery as well. Interestingly, Sally's room was adjacent to President Jefferson's bedroom. Could that have been a coincidence? After analyzing the newly found data, historians had more tangible proof that Thomas Jefferson was indeed the father of Sally's children, considering the close proximity of Sally's room to his private quarters. The fact that their rooms were so close to each other, along with the genetic evidence provided by the DNA test conducted in the 90s, was evidence enough for historians to conclude that Jefferson was the father of Hemings' children. Fraser Neiman, the director of archaeology at Monticello, later stated, "This room is a real connection to the past. We are uncovering and discovering, and we're finding many, many artifacts." After further investigation, this hidden room revealed even more details about the life of this interesting woman who was brought to the Monticello Plantation as a slave. This discovery gives us a sense of how enslaved people were living. Some of Sally's children may have been born in this room, added Gardner Hullock, the director of the restoration for Jefferson's home. It's important because it shows Sally as a human being, a mother, daughter, and sister, and brings out the relationships in her life. After all these discoveries, historians came to believe that the reason why Sally Hemings returned to the U.S. from Paris was because Thomas Jefferson had promised her that her children could be free once they become adults. Interestingly, the Hemings family were the only family Jefferson ever freed during his lifetime. Even though he did free some other individuals, he never freed a whole family of 4 siblings. Besides proving that Thomas Jefferson was the father of children born to an enslaved woman, the recent discovery of the hidden room proved that Sally Hemings had a much higher standard of living compared to other slaves at Monticello. However, despite the privileges she was given, Sally always remained a slave and had to work at the estate just like any other slave did. Even though she had a room adjacent to Jefferson's private quarters, Sally still lived in uncomfortable conditions. It was later discovered that the room had no windows, which meant it must have been dark and uncomfortable to live in. Some even believed that the reason a bathroom was built over her room was because people wanted to cover up her existence. They considered that building a bathroom in that location was an insult to Sally's legacy. A project worth $35 million, named the Mountaintop Project, was created to bring more transparency on the past at Monticello. The project aimed to tell the story of people who lived and worked at the state, both the free and enslaved workers, as well as focus on the Hemings family as one of the most extraordinary families in the U.S. history. For the first time at Monticello we have a physical space dedicated to Sally Hemings and her life, said Mia Magruder DeMond, the spokeswoman for Monticello. She also added that, "It's significant because it connects the entire African American arch at Monticello." The discovery of Sally Hemings' room shed some light on her life, as well as on life of all enslaved workers on the estate. After this important discovery, curators have been putting effort in incorporating the story of Sally's life into the overall narrative of Jefferson's life and presidency. According to the historian Nia Bates, the discovery of Sally's room will also portray her outside of the mystery. The newly created exhibit added a more humanizing image of Sally Hemings, a woman whose life story was surrounded by rumors and gossip for centuries. She was a mother, a sister, an ancestor for her descendants, and the room's presentation will really just shape her as a person and give her a presence outside of the wonder of their relationship, Bates said. The decades of portrayal of Monticello have been changed due to the new archaeological findings. The focus was now put on Sally Hemings, the topic of the most interesting exhibitions on the property. Lucia Cinder Stanton, who is now a retired historian, began working at Monticello in 1968 and she recalled that Sally's name wasn't even mentioned in tours at that time. This was about to change. The historians at Monticello are now restoring the room of Sally Hemings. They decided to exhibit the space along with furniture and artifacts from that period which were found on the property, including ceramics and bone toothbrushes. There wasn't much to say about the Hemings family back in the day. However, in 1993, on the 250th anniversary of Jefferson's birthday, curators began including the stories of enslaved people into tours and exhibitions. Still, it took a long time for the descendants of the slaves to visit the Monticello property.